foundation of successful gardening, and indeed all crop production, is soil. Whenever and wherever soil fertility has been depleted, entire civilizations have crumbled because they could no longer feed themselves. What exactly is soil?
Soil is actually the top layer of the earth crust where plants grow. It consists of minerals, air, water, and organic matter. Now the organic matter is what most of the plant nutrient is found in, right? The air, plants need air, oxygen and carbon dioxide. Now the minerals, you get the minerals from the sand, silt, and clay or so forth. Those are what the minerals within the soil come from, right? And water, the source of the water is either rainfall or from the top. Plants need water in order to break down these nutrients, for especially those nutrients that are very compact within the soil. What the water actually does is to break it up, right? So it's more accessible to the plant. Air is all around us, right? But within the soil, it's very ideal for a soil to be what we call porosity, right? It's basically some tiny holes between the soil particles. So this is where the air would actually go through. So therefore, the plant root itself will be able to access these air to get oxygen or carbon dioxide and so forth, because plants need them in order to make their own food. There are also other living things within the soil. These can include fungus, bacteria, millipedes, earthworms. Ideally, for a soil to be perfect for plant growth, whenever plowing the soil, the presence of earthworms should be in it, because it triggers the amount of level of organic matter that the soil consists of, right? So apart from just the air and the nutrients and so forth, we also have living things within the soil. Just to look over here, we have some samples of different soils that exist here in Jamaica, right? Here we have clay, sandy soil, silt, and what we call loam. All of them possess different characteristics. There are also certain soils that are whitish or yellowish in color. Now those is high in what we call the calcium, which is now mostly marl soils. Here in Jamaica, those are found in mostly the coastal areas. Clay soil is one that have low porosity. The amount of air it holds is very low, right? It have little to none, because the particles are so compact together. And one way to determine if the type of soil that you have is clay is to basically just squeeze it between your hands and roll it. If you release it and it's still compact, then it's a clay soil, right? Let's just move on. Here we have a sandy soil. Now, the difference with the clay and the sand here is that the clay holds a lot of water. The sandy soil holds little to none. If you actually just look at it, it's very loose, right? If you roll it together, even squeeze it, upon release, it shivers. Just let us look now at the silt. One thing with the silt particles are much smaller than that of the clay or the sandy soil. The silt is more like a powdery. If we look here, it's more powdery. If it's wet, it won't stick together as in the clay, and it won't crumble as in the sandy soil, right? So the silt itself is very powderish, and this is one of the factors with it. It's not too ideal for plant growth. Mark you, it's easier to grow the plant in the silt than the sandy soil and the clay, right? Because the proportion of clay and air mixture will be different. But let me introduce you to what we call the perfect soil, which is one that is known as loam, right? So this is an equal proportion, an equal mixture of sand, silt, and clay. This is what is known as the loam. It won't stick together, it won't crumble when released, and it's not in a powder form, and it doesn't hold as much water as the clay would do. In doing your backyard gardening, you want to ensure that you have a soil that is very high in organic matter, or what we normally call the humus content, right? For the humus, it's that top layer of a soil, that dark layer. if you have ever seen a pit or a pit that was dug, right? If you looked at the different layer, the uppermost layer of that pit is that part that is dark. That's the humus. And the humus is actually decay particles from rotted trees or leaves and so forth. Now, these particles are broken down by those insects, those living organisms within the soil, such as the millipedes and the earthworm. The humus is what the millipedes and the earthworm, when it breaks down these rotted plants or leaves falling from it. So that's what we call the humus. So you want a soil that is very high in that, right? Normally, your loam soil is very ideal for backyard gardening because the loam, as I said, the loam is very rich in organic matter. It's ideal, it doesn't have that sort of too much porosity, right? Therefore, it holds adequate amount of water for the plant. The loam itself is ideal for doing backyard gardening for the plant growth, whether in containers or out in the field. There are three main nutrients that the plant needs to grow. One is nitrogen, two, phosphorus, and three, potassium. So those are the major nutrients. Apart from those, they need micronutrients such as the calcium and magnesium and so forth, right? But in order to know what nutrient is available within your soil, I recommend that you get your soil tested by the Rural Physical Planning Division of the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, right? That testing will not only tell you the level of nutrients or the type of nutrients that is in the soil, but also will tell you the porosity of the soil and so forth, right? It also give you an idea or a recommendation on the type of nutrients to be added. Now, this is a healthy plant that shows good nitrogenous features, right? Because if you look at the leaves, it's have a dark greenish color, which is ideal. Most crops should look like this. If you see the leaves start to become pale yellow, it's nitrogen, lack of nitrogen would be responsible for that. So if no treatment is done, what will happen? The leaves will just eventually dries down and the plant die, right? So this is an ideal plant to show this plant is not lacking in nitrogen. The potassium gives it that vigor to produce a strong flower, a strong fruit production. So if a plant is lacking in potassium, most times the flower may or may not come out. Or if it does, it eventually will fall, right? And the fruit production will be slow and it's very slow. So you won't get an ideal production as it relates to fruits from the plant if it's lacking in that. Now, phosphorus is good for root development of the plants. The phosphorus triggers give the plant that vigor, so enable it to take up the relevant nutrients. So the root location of the root will be actually in the soil here. So it's where all that phosphorus is located, or it's used up. So within the root system of the plant. So it encourages the anchorage of the plant and also the nutrient uptake. All of these nutrients are found within the soil, and if you have done a soil test or if you do a soil test and it's not present, right, the soil test would recommend the type of nutrient and the amount that should be added within the soil. But it must be noted that nitrogen though, most nitrogen is found within the atmosphere, the air, right? So most times when nitrogen reaches to the plant, it's through heavy rainfall, thunderstorms and so forth. And once it reaches to the soil, there are some what we call the nitrogenous bacteria within the soil that convert the nitrogen in a form that the plant can easily absorb it and make use of it. The potassium and the phosphorus is normally found within the soil from rotted plants when it's breaking down. It's more of a cycle process, right? So most of those are found within the soil itself. For fertilizers, additional nutrient, most of those nutrients they are taken from minerals. Persons mine those from minerals in order to add it back to the soil. So they convert it in a state where the plant itself can easily absorb it. Soil is important for your backyard garden because it's where all the nutrients that the plant needs is located, right? So you need to get a soil that is suitable for plant growth. One, it stores the nutrient, and also the soil serves as an anchorage. especially during times of heavy rain and so forth. The plant root is where the soil is located. So it helps to hold the plant to resist against those impacts, right? So the soil is very important. Now, these are a list of things that you need to start your backyard gardening. What we have here is a spray pan, right, which is ideal for controlling weeds, pests, and even for the application of fertilizers. You also need a bucket. And I mean, you doesn't have to go anywhere to purchase it. Just an old soap or oil bucket can be used here. Also, we need a garden hose, which is ideal for irrigation. Gloves, which, I mean, for areas which is very stony and so forth, you need to protect your hands. So it's ideal to have gloves here. We also need seed trays for those of you who won't be able to purchase what is known as seedlings, right? So the seed trays is ideal for germinating or for growing your seeds, right? We also need a watering can, right? So in case the hose can't reach, you have a watering can you can use also. We need sticks, especially for things like you're growing like a tomato and so forth. What we call them sticks, right? But these are just some old sticks, old tree limbs that you have. You can use them as a stick. We also need hammer and staples. Now this, whenever you're going to, or if you have to protect your area from pests, animals, whether goats, dogs, or so forth, it's ideal to use these instruments in protecting the area, right? You also need a card, and the card is usable especially to get your garden uniform. You need to use a card to use as a measurement to give you an idea of how it is possible to get your things uniform. You also need potting soil, right? You need kaya, gravel, and what we have here is chicken manure. This chicken manure is already being broken down, so that's why I have that dark lookish color here, right? Now this is what you're going to use and mix together that we'll look on later on as one complete soil mix for growing proper crops. Soil, you can get it from anywhere. And as I mentioned before, the loam is the best type of soil to use in backyard gardening. The kaya now, what happens, you can get these from the farm store to buy, or if you have access to coconut husk, you can use it. It's the same kaya, but this is a more refined one. And this helps in actually aerating the soil. Whenever we do the mixture, which we'll show later on, it helps in the aeration and the organic content of your potting mixture itself. We also need gravels. Now, gravel can be purchased, or if you have it in your yard or so forth, it can be used, right? It helps in the mixture also. It helps to break up the soil, the particles, to allow free drainage, as we discussed earlier. And what you also need is the organic matter. Now, this is ideal. This actually is manure, chicken manure. You can use goat manure and horse manure, cow manure, and so forth. But one thing I must say, the chicken manure is very harsh. Harsh in the sense that if you apply it exactly when planting, it will cause the plants to burn, right? So what you need to do, if you go out there and plow the land, you need to apply the manure at least 3 weeks before. Because if not, the manure will not be broken down in such a sense that it is easily accessible to the plant and it won't damage the plant, right? Opposite to that now, you have the manures like your horse manure, your rabbit manure, your goat manure, which is less harsh. So those can be applied at least 5-6 days before planting. Goat manure is actually the waste, the feces, the goat feces, right? Likewise the horse or the cow and so forth. If you're using chicken manure, apply it to the soil, mix it, or what we call plowing. It's actually the mixing of the soil. Mix it into the soil at least 3 weeks before planting. Also, what we have here that you definitely need to actually help in securing a garden is lumber. Actually a 2x4 lumber, which is very sturdy for preventing strains and so forth on the fence. What we need, what is ideal for using is what we call a hog wire, right? And this is accessible hardware lumber shops, or if you don't have the hog wire, I mean, if you have zinc available, fine. You can use it as a barrier also, right? And the thing about the hog wire also, it can be used as a sieve. to refine your soil particle that you're going to use. You're definitely going to need a fork, right? Which is ideal in what we call when you're plowing the soil, right? So this will allow you to mix up or to break up the soil particles together, apart, so that the plant nutrient will be able to be absorbed and the roots of the plant to be able to go through the soil itself for anchorage and nutrient uptake. And you also need a spade. Now this is a very ideal thing, especially for digging the holes for the post and so forth, or some of the holes for the plants, right? This is what you need to help you during that process. Also, we have here, what you're going to need is a hand spade, right? Within the garden kit, I must say that is provided by RADA. You get a hand spade in it and seed trays alongside with nutrients, fertilizers, potting mixture and seeds. So this hand spade is ideally for especially ladies who likes to nurture the plants, right? So this can be used to dig the holes, right? And also help to deal with the banking and so forth. So dig the holes for the plant, you put the plant and then you use it in covering. Right, so this is where the hand spade come in handy. Also, what we also recommend is a garbage bag, right? So these are some material that you find available in your house. Now what we use this to do now, you may be asking, a garbage bag, backyard garden, what we use it to do? But guess what? This is one of the tools that we use to effectively manage those pests and diseases that are in the soil itself. So it's a process that we call soil solarization.
I learned how to prepare the bed, because the first thing, if you're do farming, you got to prepare the land space. Make sure the soil is right. To put in the seed, you got to know the right distance in the soil the seed go at, because it maybe go too far, seed can die.